You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, Internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Most writers and radio show hosts know that to connect with your fans, you need to do more than just write books or record the latest podcasts. There are many different elements that go into forming an online platform, but there are also many hidden traps. To make matters worse, solid advice on how to survive the muddy waters is scarce. In the book Hidden Traps, I talk about some of the important issues of working with an online platform, highlighting traps that could put your physical or internet security at risk or be harmful to your reputation. Are your social media posts just links with a few disjointed words, making you look like someone who can't complete a sentence? Did your new website cost you more than you anticipated? Are you leaking your personal contact details across the web without even knowing it? Then you need Hidden Traps. Hidden Traps is now available in paperback and ebook from a variety of retailers, including Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo. Visit blackwolfpublications.com for more details.
If you're 85 or younger, would you like peace of mind and comfort for your family? We're Final Expense Direct with an urgent message for you. The average funeral today costs over $8,000, but the most you'll get from government benefits is $255. How will your family pay the difference? We can help. Our senior plans start as low as just $1 a day and pay up to $30,000 for a funeral and other final expenses. Peace of mind is easy. There's no medical exam. You'll have lifetime coverage, and your plan can't be canceled as long as you pay your premiums. Call now for free information about our senior plans. Answer a few simple questions and receive approval right on the phone. Plus, call right now and we'll give you a discount prescription card for free. Call 800-553-8687. That's 800-553-8687. Again, 800-553-8687.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Attention business owners and independent contractors. This is a money-saving message from Tax Mediation Services. If your business owes $20,000 or more in taxes, we can help you today, right now. Listen, dealing with the IRS is no picnic. It's an intimidating and extremely stressful process, and you don't want to go it alone. Our attorneys know every law, every tax break, and every possible opportunity to help you resolve and reduce your tax debt. And if you owe more than $20,000, you may be at the top of their hit list. So don't take your tax debt lightly, because it will not go away on its own. The IRS can seize your bank accounts, your home, and even shut down your business. Call our tax experts today at 1-800-783-0810 and let us deal with the IRS while you focus on your business. That's 1-800-783-0810. Again, that's 800-783-0810.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq. Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is. If getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now, 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
Sometimes riders feel lost, unsure why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, offering manuscript critiques and line edits through a mentoring editorial style. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services, visit blackwolfeditorial.com.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
My name is Jessie, and I'm proud of the life I have, surrounded by military and aware just how big the world really is. I have a unique perspective on life and the world around us. If you're willing to listen, I'll tell you how I see it, and I won't pull any punches. This is my POV, which stands for Point of View. Alright, how's everybody doing out there tonight? Yes, it's Jessie. Yes, I miss you when we're not talking. Sorry I had to bail on you last night. It's called a migraine, folks. It's, well, not fun. What can I say? Now, before I kick off the show properly and get everything kicked off, I want to touch on one of the topics we had discussed at length in a previous episode, and that was UNRWA, the UN agency that funds the Palestinians in large part. And this was an audio clip by someone at the United Nations, one of the spokespeople. I didn't get their name, but let's hear it.
UNRWA said today, because of the emergency assistance is critically underfunded in the occupied Palestinian territory, the agency has been forced to take a number of mitigating measures. As a result, in the West Bank, UNRWA will discontinue its cash for work activities effective July 31st. However, households assessed in the last 2 years as being abject poor will be transitioned to the Social Safety Net program, a core program of the agency which UNRWA is determined to continue. This will ensure that the most impoverished refugees inside camps continue to receive assistance and become eligible for other forms of support which are not available under cash for work.
$100 million.
Now, this is due in part to our canceling a large portion of our donation to UNRWA. Let's continue with this statement.
UNRWA and its leadership is managing the situation as best it can. And, you know, this is not just a problem with UNRWA. We've seen it with other humanitarian emergencies. When the money runs out, hard decisions have to be made. When the money runs out, the money runs out. And that means aid stops from being distributed, mental health support, all these programs that are often critical to populations in need.
But yes, so UNRWA is being forced to make some hard choices because one of their largest benefactors, the United States, said, we're not given as much as we did before. Well, I honestly, as much as I hate to see average Palestinians hurt by this, I don't want to see UNRWA money used to fund terrorism, so I'm sorry. But maybe if you elected leaders that weren't terrorists, You don't hear these same stories about the West Bank. They're only about Gaza. And that's what makes me know for a fact that there are other ways to go about things. But yes, when the money runs out, the money runs out. So I'm sorry for the average Palestinian that is hurt by this, but your government is run by terrorists. Now, you may not have had a choice in who was on the ballot. You may not have voted for the people that are running your government. But all I can say is hard choices have to be made. And when 50% of the money that is given to the occupied territories in the West Bank, and particularly in Gaza, are going to either terrorists themselves or the families of terrorists, I support us pulling our money. And while I did not cheer for the fact that some of the average Palestinians will be losing money, I was happy to see that that this hit UNRWA in the pocketbook. All right, moving right along. The return of the remains of those lost in the Korean War. We have talked about it on this show several times. And excuse me, Mr. Frog wanted to give his opinion in. It is underway right now. And there is a U.S. plane that left Osan Air Base about 5 hours ago now and landed in North Korea. Yes, that is an amazing step. The aircraft departed from Osan Air Base about 70 kilometers south of Seoul at 5:55 a.m. local time for Kalma Airport in the northeast coastal city of Wonsan. It's a flight expected to take about an hour. The U.S. is expected to get approximately 50 sets of remains from the North Korean side. Upon their return to Osan Air Base, the DoD POW MIA accounting agency, Prisoners of War Missing in Action, is expected to check the remains and send them to Hawaii for a forensic identification, translation DNA. Now, first of all, I am thrilled that these men, and yes, I am only going to say men, are coming home. I am cheering this beyond belief. In fact, yes, it is a great thing, because these families will finally get closure. They will finally have a grave to put flowers on. And while that may not seem like a large thing, it's huge. It is part of the June 12th summit that was agreement between Trump and KJU. It was one of the few things that actually meant anything. Now, this is Armistice Day on the Korean Peninsula. because it is the day 65 65th anniversary of the signing of the armistice that halted the 65 years ago. Now, the two countries are still technically at war. However, there's no longer the feeling that it's going to explode into a hot war at any given moment. Now, just as another interesting story I found, and I'm not trying to take away at all from the return of the troops, but there's a couple other small stories I want to bring your attention to. There is a dog that has a price on its head. And no, it's not for sale at your local pet store. It is a Colombian drug sniffing dog who has sniffed out a record amount of drugs in her career with the counter-narcotics police. The Urbanos drugs gang put a $70,000 price on the German shepherd's head after she found almost 10 tons of the gang's cocaine. And her name is Sombra, which means shadow. She was moved to the Bogota airport from the gang's heartland. She sniffed out 5.3 tons of cocaine in Turbo and recently found another 4 tons stashed in car parts meant for export. Much of the drug trafficking is controlled by the Urbanos gang, which is also known as the Usaga gang or Gulf Clan. The gang's boss, also known as Otonio, is one of Colombia's most wanted men. Now, it's not unusual for the gang to offer money to get rid of those standing in their way. In 2012, the Colombian police found leaflets offering $500 to anyone who killed a police officer. The fact that they're offering a much larger sum for the death of this German shepherd, Shadow, is indicative that her nose is really cutting into their profits. The counter-narcotics police say Shadow is being well guarded by her handler and other officers, but for the time being, she'll be safer on duty at El Dorado Airport in the capital. Sombra has been with counter-narcotics police, the puppy, since she was a puppy and is credited with sniffing out drugs, leading to the arrest of 245 suspects. So this is not a small amount of money, especially when you consider the target is a dog. Now, I do not know if Colombia has the same laws about police and the killing of police officers that we do. And it's one of those things of, I hope they do. However, I don't know. And I didn't take the time to investigate it. But I thought I should at least mention the story to you. Now, from dogs to Daesh. No, as much as I'd love to say they're gone, they're not. Mass funeral held for more than 200 killed in coordinated attacks in southern Syria. Mourners in southern Syria attended mass funerals Thursday for at least 216 people killed in coordinated attacks by Daesh fighters on a usually peaceful city and the surrounding countryside. It was the worst violence to hit the area since the country's conflict began. The militants also reportedly abducted at least 18 people. It was simultaneous attacks on the city of Swida and surrounding villages, and it evoked the dark days of Daesh violence that beleaguered Syria and neighboring Iraq during the heyday of 2014 and 2015. At least 14 of those who were abducted were women. The mass funeral was held to sit in a hall. The devastated city was covered in black and shops were closed during the day to mourn the mass deaths. Sweden was home to a prominently Druze community and had been largely spared the violence since 2011, as Syria's civil war took increasing sectarian undertones, pitting the largely Sunni opposition against a predominantly Alawite ruling class. The Druze minority stayed largely on the sidelines. Community leaders in Sweden took a firm position against participating in the war, resisting enrolling their sons in the army to avoid revenge attacks. The Druze follow an offshoot of Islam and have kept their own local militias. The attacks on Wednesday rocked the community, sparking criticism of the government for failing to protect the minority group. Diana Saman, a Syria researcher at the rights group Amnesty International, said there were signs that no government troops or security were present to provide protection for the community when it came under attack. Despite the community's pushback against getting involved in the war, the government has an obligation to protect them. The rare attacks in Sweden came amid a government offensive elsewhere in the country's south. Syrian forces are battling a Daesh-linked group near the frontier with Israeli-occupied Golan Heights and near the border with Jordan. The group also has a small presence on the eastern edge of the Sweden province and in the desert in adjacent Homs province. The militants launched their offensive with a spate of suicide bombings in the city of Sweden in the early hours of Wednesday, including one at a busy vegetable market that left a scene of devastation. The militants also swarmed several villages in the province's northeast, in some cases shot residents as they slept. A government health official in Sweden said Thursday that at least 150 people were wounded in the attacks. The British-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights also reported the abduction, saying dozens were taken from their homes, but details of the operation remained unclear. The British-based group put the death toll at 246, including 111 members of local militias who took up arms to fight the advancing militants. They found bodies in homes, bodies in streets, and bodies all around. The extremist group did boast that its quote-unquote soldiers killed more than 100 people in Sweden. And by the way, since their offensive in June, Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's forces have retaken territories controlled by the rebels along the Golan Heights frontier and are now fighting militants in the country's southern tip. This is why borders are important, folks. Now, Daesh didn't post a death toll for its own men. However, the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said at least 56 militants were killed. Alright, folks. On the other side of the bottom of the hour, we are going to talk about Qatar. I'm just going through my show prep to see if there's anything else I want to bring up before we talk about Qatar. Yep, there's the one I was looking for. Oh, you didn't hear the show prep? There you go. Barely a week after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu won passage of a controversial measure underscoring his country's Jewish identity, the coalition that helped him pass the legislation by a narrow margin is starting to fray. The law defines Israel as the historic homeland of the Jewish people, who have a singular right to a national self-determination within it. It diminishes the status of Arabic, which previously had equal status with Hebrew, as one of the country's two official languages, but now occupies an undefined quote-unquote special status. The law also asserts that the state sees the development of Jewish settlements as a national value and will act to encourage and promote their establishment and consolidation. Although the law was untangle my tongue, please. Although the law was initially applauded by most Israel's right wing, that began to change when hardline Education Minister Naftali Bennett said the manner in which the nation-state law was enacted was very damaging to the country's Druze minority. Where have we heard the word Druze minority before? About 2 minutes ago in Syria. A group of former military chiefs and commanders of elite army units took a stand against the law, and Finance Minister Moshe Kalon conceded, "We enacted the national state law in a rush. We were wrong and we need to fix it." Here are some questions and answers about the law. The law's advocates say it ratifies Israel's raison d'etre as a Jewish state and a place of refuge for Jews. With this law, we determine the founding principle of our existence. Israel is the national state of the Jewish people and respects the rights of all of its citizens. Well, why? Everyone knows Israel's the home of the Jews. Why? Well, some are calling it tantamount to apartheid. Many Jewish American organizations also decried the law, and they were deeply disappointed by the law's passage and that it puts at risk the commitment of Israel's founders to build a country that is both Jewish and democratic. There's been an uprising within the Druze community, which comprises Arabic language speakers who follow a monolithic Middle Eastern religion and serve in the Israeli army. The Druze minority within Israel's 20% Arab minority number about 150,000 out of the nation's population of 8.5 million. They hold important political positions and are renowned for their loyalty to the state. With the first legal challenge to the law, 3 Druze members of parliament filed a petition with Israel's Supreme Court to strike down the law. On Wednesday, more than 100 Druze reserve officers of the Israeli Defense Force, including several generals, announced the formation of a forum to fight the law. Having built this home together with Jews, the nation's state law excludes the Druze community from that home and leaves us outside, according to Brigadier General Amal Assad. Citing allegiance of Druze soldiers even before the establishment of Israel in 1948, he said, for some reason, the Druze community has been left behind. I served for this country in the IDF for 26 years. I have a right to demand for it to be mine, exactly as yours. The anger isn't limited to military figures. But what else is going on? The strains in Netanyahu's coalition are showing. In recent years, the Prime Minister's right-wing Likud party has been splintered by a Tea Party-like base that has pulled it significantly to the right and championed the nation-state law. Some within the coalition disagree with the law. The judges of the Supreme Court will acknowledge the injustice that the Jewish nation-state law has committed against Israel's Druze. However, Parliament, or the Knesset, should admit it erred in passing the law. It is the Knesset that has made the mistake, and it is the Knesset that has to rectify it. A centrist legislator explained that the government failed to explain why, because there is no clear need for this law. It passed the bill at 3 a.m. on the last day before summer recess, while suspiciously denying repeated requests from opposition to include clear civic equality provisions. Why would anyone deny including something like a Bill of Rights or clear civic provisions? And just as we saw in our own country, I have to say, separate but equal is not equal. All right, folks, we have reached the bottom of the hour, and it is time to pay those radio station bills. Now, this bumper music, yeah, this one's for those servicemen who are finally being freed from North Korea, even though it's their remains.
They fight and die for our freedom. No one had to ask them to go without a moment's hesitation. For the red, white, and blue.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, Internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Most writers and radio show hosts know that to connect with your fans, you need to do more than just write books or record the latest podcasts. There are many different elements that go into forming an online platform, but there are also many hidden traps. To make matters worse, solid advice on how to survive the muddy waters is scarce. In the book Hidden Traps, I talk about some of the important issues of working with an online platform, highlighting traps that could put your physical or internet security at risk or be harmful to your reputation. Are your social media posts just links with a few disjointed words, making you look like someone who can't complete a sentence? Did your new website cost you more than you anticipated? Are you leaking your personal contact details across the web without even knowing it? Then you need Hidden Traps. Hidden Traps is now available in paperback and ebook from a variety of retailers, including Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo. Visit blackwolfpublications.com for more details.
If you're 85 or younger, would you like peace of mind and comfort for your family? We're Final Expense Direct with an urgent message for you. The average funeral today costs over $8,000, but the most you'll get from government benefits is $255. How will your family pay the difference? We can help. Our senior plans start as low as just $1 a day and pay up to $30,000 for a funeral and other final expenses. Peace of mind is easy. There's no medical exam. You'll have lifetime coverage, and your plan can't be canceled as long as you pay your premiums. Call now for free information about our senior plans. Answer a few simple questions and receive approval right on the phone. Plus, call right now and we'll give you a discount prescription card for free. Call 800-553-8687. That's 800-553-8687. Again, 800-553-8687.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Attention business owners and independent contractors. This is a money-saving message from Tax Mediation Services. If your business owes $20,000 or more in taxes, we can help you today, right now. Listen, dealing with the IRS is no picnic. It's an intimidating and extremely stressful process, and you don't want to go it alone. Our attorneys know every law, every tax break, and every possible opportunity to help you resolve and reduce your tax debt. And if you owe more than $20,000, you may be at the top of their hit list. So don't take your tax debt lightly, because it will not go away on its own. The IRS can seize your bank accounts, your home, and even shut down your business. Call our tax experts today at 1-800-783-0810 and let us deal with the IRS while you focus on your business. That's 1-800-783-0810. Again, that's 800-783-0810.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq. Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is. If getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now. 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
Sometimes riders feel lost, unsure why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, offering manuscript critiques and line edits through a mentoring editorial style. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services, visit blackwolfeditorial.com.
Well, I won't back down. No, I won't back down. You can stand me up at the gates of hell, but I won't back down.
All right, thank you for tuning in there with me while we paid those radio station bills. All right. If you recall, almost a year ago, I did a story about cows. Yes, moo. In fact, I'll have to see if I can find my sound effect. But I did a story about cows. And you're looking at me like I've lost my mind and I don't know what I'm discussing. I promise you, I do. And no, I'm not going to make Bessie tell it. All right. A herd of cattle was being airlifted into Qatar. Why? For dairy production, of course. Well, airlifting is expensive, but Qatar is under a blockade. A ground, air, land, and sea. Well, Qatar is a landlocked country, so there has no seaports. Everything brought in by boat has to be driven through another country first. But with all its neighbors blockading it, Qatar can't access seaports. And with all its neighbors putting it in a land blockade, couldn't bring them in by vehicle either. So they flew in a herd of cows. No, I don't have a cow update. Except to say, Qatar has launched an effort to produce more things locally. Qatar said it was banning products originating from UAE, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and Bahrain almost a year after those states imposed an embargo on Doha, accusing it of supporting terrorism. Doha is the capital of Qatar. Products originating from the blockaded states, which as a result of the blockade cannot pass the Gulf Cooperation Council customs territory, have to undergo proper import inspections and customs procedures. To protect the safety of consumers in the state of Qatar and to combat improper trafficking of goods, the government issued a directive to find new suppliers of the variety of goods impacted. This means Qatar, that used to import quite a number of things, even milk, well, they've developed new shipping routes through places such as Oman, and there's now cows in Qatar. This would have been unthinkable a year ago. The 4 states cut diplomatic ties from Qatar over an allegation of supporting terrorism. And I'm going to give you a rundown on what happened. By the way, it's going to be interesting to watch in 3 years, or 2022, because Qatar is supposed to host the World Cup. Yes, I said Qatar is supposed to host the World Cup. Many of these countries will most certainly want their teams to feature prominently in such an international competition. However, who knows what will happen? The United States is looking to build some momentum towards resolving the Gulf crisis. And we do, by the way, have a base in Qatar. It's Al Udeid. And there's approximately 11,000 U.S. military personnel stationed there. Well, guess what? It's going to be expanded. The ceremony for that happened July 24th. And the base is approximately 30 kilometers southwest of Doha, the capital, Doha. There's been anti-Qatari protests. However, not all these protests are what they seem. On July 23rd, there was a report revealing that a casting agency in the UK offered actors $25 to take part in an anti-Qatar event outside a meeting between Qatar's Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani and British Prime Minister Theresa May. Now, the ad did say it was not a film or a TV production. However, they said you don't have to do or say anything, they just want to fill space, and it'll be finished at 12:30. Casting agency did retract the advert, saying they did not want to be involved as soon as they realized it was a political demonstration. However, this just goes to show, even what you see with your own eyes may not be legitimate. On July 23rd, the United Nations top court issued a provisional ruling saying that measures put in place by the United Arab Emirates as part of its boycott against Qatar amount to racial discrimination. Because the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, separated Qatari families, imposing a measure before deporting those who didn't have dual citizenship or only had Qatari. Students should have been given the opportunity to complete their studies in the UAE or at least retain records of their studies. No, they weren't allowed that. They were just told to leave. Qataris should be allowed access to judicial services in the country. At present, they're not. Qatar filed a case in the Court of Justice accusing the UAE of violating international law by expelling thousands of Qataris, many who have family or own property in the UAE, and closing UAE airspace and ports to Qatar. Well, Qatar is finally fighting back. Yes, it has to do with trade with alleged ties for supporting terrorism. But there is a story behind it. And there's many different things that go on. The Qatar Petroleum CEO said the company will push ahead with its production expansion despite the blockade, because it is one of the most influential players in the liquefied natural gas market, because it produces 77 million tons. By the way, Syria also said Qatar must pay for the U.S. military forces in Syria. Yes. Saudi Arabia's Foreign Ministry Adel al-Jubeir said that Qatar must pay for the U.S. forces in Syria and send its forces there before the U.S. president denies protection for Qatar. This is after Donald Trump repeated earlier calls on the immensely wealthy countries in the region to step up their financial and military involvement in the region instead of the United States. And without the United States, they wouldn't last a week. We're protecting them. They now have to set up and pay for what is happening. Well, I don't think Qatar should be the only person paying. On April 2nd, the UAE said it filed a complaint against Qatar at the International Civil Aviation Organization over alleged interceptions of its aircraft in Bahraini space. Qatar denied claims by the UAE that Qatari Air Force had intercepted 2 passenger flights in Bahrain airspace. Qatar's Civil Aviation Authority said the Emirati statement was an attempt to cover up multiple breaches of Qatari's airspace. As you see, the jabs keep coming. And it's clear my 12-hour allergy pill isn't 12 hours. All right. Here's the story behind the blockade. Qatar reportedly paid $1 billion ransom to terrorists, which, if accurate, might be the largest in history. On December 6, 2015, 28 members of the Qatari Royal Hunting Party were kidnapped in Iraq. They'd gone falcon hunting, despite warnings not to travel to Iraq. Iraq is hostile to Qatar. And there's been new light shed on the ransom payment. New evidence points to the ransom being paid by Qataris to terrorist organizations, a claim Qatar, which is under scrutiny for funding terrorism, vehemently denies. The Qatari government insists the money went to the Iraqi government for development funding and to safeguard the return of the hostages. Qatar reportedly identified the kidnappers as Kata'ib Hezbollah, a paramilitary group funded by, remember it has the name Hezbollah, Iran. Ding, ding, ding. Had identified the attackers as Hezbollah, part of Hezbollah. The group started making their demands. They wanted money, though how much at the time wasn't clear. As time went on, the kidnappers kept increasing their demands. Not only did they want cash, but the mediators soon started demanding Rolexes and side money for what Qataris still do not know. Reports claim it may have been for the mediators themselves or in order to grease the kidnappers' palms. One of the negotiators asked for $10 million for his efforts in the negotiation process. Talk about trying to make a buck. Hezbollah, under the patronage of the Iranian general Qasem Soleimani, also started demanding the removal of Qatari forces from Yemen, the release of Iranian prisoners held in Syria. Wait, is one country supposed to accomplish all of this and deal with things that aren't even in their own country's purview? One of the demands key to the eventual release of the hostage was the Four Towns Agreement. The plan was to remove the populations of 2 Sunni towns in a Shia-held region of Syria and the population of 2 Shia towns in the Sunni-held region. The deal eventually resulted in the population swap of thousands of people. Well, I can't say that it's a bad idea to move out of a hostile neighborhood. I'm just not sure you want to be forced to do it at gunpoint. The hostage situation ended in April 2017, 16 months after the kidnapping. Qatari Airways flew the Qatari Emirates with 23 bags filled with cash to Iraq. After a standoff at the airport, the Iraqi government seized the cash. However, the hostages were still released. Shortly after this, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, and UAE started their blockade of Qatar, citing that they had a long history of financing terrorism. No offense, guys, but it almost sounds like Qatar did exactly what the United States did. Except the United States paid Iran, not Iraq. Didn't President Obama send a plane load of cash into Iran, and didn't 4 Americans come home? Sure sounds like we paid a ransom too. I notice none of these countries are blockading us or even attempting to stop trade with us. By the way, the International Court at the UN said that families must be reunited. Students should be given the opportunities to get their records or finish their education. And there is an imminent risk that the measures adopted by the UAE could lead to irreparable prejudice to the rights invoked by Qatar. This is only the first step to defend Qatar, said their spokesperson. But at the same time, this sends an early strong signal there will be no tolerance shown to countries that take arbitrary measures against Qataris. The ICJ, formerly known as the World Court, is the UN's venue for resolving legal disputes between nations. What the court has made clear in this ruling is that it does believe that the impact of the infringements of rights would be long-lasting and could have a psychological impact on the people, and UAE should do something about it. The sheer fact that the United Arab Emirates, out of the 4 countries that imposed the blockade upon Qatar, is the only signatory to this convention means that it's duty-bound and legally bound to uphold the details within the conventions. The difficulty in the UAE is that if the UAE refuses to implement the decision of the ICJ, Qatar would be advised to take it to the UN Secretary General, UN Security Council, for failure to implement a decision, which they would be entitled to do. And that kind of diplomatic pressure put on the UAE would be intense. So on June 5th, 2017, the 4 Arab countries cut all diplomatic relations with Qatar. And here we stand today. The blockade is still in place. Qatar is still surviving. And in fact, we don't know if the United Arab Emirates will listen to the ruling. Now, there's a few other things going on, and I know I'm almost out of time. But I've got to bring this story up since it was mentioned at the United Nations. Palestine even though you can't find it on a map, at least not most maps, which is considered a nation-state by the United Nations, was elected as president of the Group of 77. Yeah, no, I'd never heard of the Group of 77 either. It was established in 1964 by 77 countries that was designed to promote their collective economic interests as well as to enhance their joint negotiating capacity on all major international and economic issues within the United Nations. Over the years, as with most groups, it has expanded to 135 members. These are 80% of the world's population. The bloc also tends to speak with one voice at the General Assembly. Palestine will take over from the current presiding country, Egypt. The goal of the Group of 77 originally was to facilitate the economic advancement of underdeveloped nations. I just don't know if the Group of 77 still has this role, because I hate to say it, Egypt's economy isn't exactly suffering. And I'm afraid that with the Group of 77, Palestine leading the quote Group of 77, it will become another platform to attack Israel. The United Nations Security Council in particular already spends a disproportionate amount of time on the Israel-Gaza situation. The perfect example is the 6-hour meeting just the other day, during which Nikki Haley mentioned the UNRWA funding and the cuts. And yes, don't forget, last month we pulled out of the Human Rights Council. Why? Because the Human Rights Council needed us just for there to look good. But that's not a reason for us to remain anywhere. And I'm sorry if that's the only reason we were in the Human Rights Council, was so that the Human Rights Council would have legitimacy. I'm glad we pulled out. Alright, folks, that's it for the week. And I will see you all next week. Until then, follow me on Twitter at Radio Host Jesse. Don't forget, if you missed an episode, Jesse's POV as well as Jesse's Coffee Shop. And yes, there will be a new episode tomorrow night. Are both available on Spotify, iTunes, iHeart, Google Play, and many other podcast locations. On that note, friends, I'm gone.